I've been working the night shift at this gas station for over 6 months. It's located far out in the woods, the kind of place where you wonder if it's even worth the gas to drive this far. Most nights, it's quiet, save for the occasional trucker or a few locals passing through. But tonight felt different. It had started as an ordinary shift. The station was the same, the flickering neon sign, the hum of the fluorescent lights, and the endless stretch of highway that vanished into the darkness. A heavy silence always hung over the place, thick and oppressive like the dense forest that surrounded it. It was around 11 p.m. when I first noticed them, a group of hooded figures gathered near the pumps. They didn't approach the building, but they weren't leaving either. There was something unsettling about them, but I tried to dismiss the feeling. Just a group of travelers, I told myself. But even as I watched them through the window, they stood motionless, staring into the darkness of the forest. As the minutes ticked by, I couldn't shake the sense that they were watching me, their stillness almost deliberate. My coworker, Tony, who had been half asleep in the back office, chuckled when I mentioned the odd group. Probably just some local weirdos, he said, flicking through his phone. You know, cultists or something. There's a story that gets passed around. Some kind of urban legend about people who live out there worshipping something ancient. I shook my head, trying to laugh along. Cultists? Really? Tony shrugged. Could be. I wouldn't put it past some of the folks around here. Strange stuff happens in these woods. Best not to think too hard about it. I didn't think much of it at the time, but a chill crawled up my spine as I continued to observe the figures from the window. They hadn't moved at all. Then, just after midnight, one of the hooded men came inside. He was tall, with a gaunt face that was half hidden in shadow under the hood. His eyes were the most unsettling part of him. There was something cold, something distant in them. He approached the counter slowly, and without saying a word, he placed a small piece of paper on it. "Do you know what a marked trail is?" he asked in a low, gravelly voice. I blinked, not quite understanding. "The marked trail?" I repeated. "The trail," he whispered, leaning closer. "The one that leads to the gateway." I didn't know what to say. I'd never heard of any marked trail around here. The area surrounding the station was thick with trees, and the only path that I knew of led down to a small creek a few miles away. But the way he spoke, so certain, like he knew something I didn't, it unsettled me. I wanted to ask more, but something in his demeanor stopped me. His cold stare was unnerving. "I don't know what you mean," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Maybe you should check with the locals." He nodded slowly, as if he already knew what I would say. Without another word, he turned and left, disappearing into the night. The moment he was gone, Tony emerged from the back office, smirking. "That guy? Weird, right? Probably just looking for some old trail or some crap. Don't worry about it." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Later, around 1:30 a.m., the man returned. This time, his eyes were glowing faintly in the dim light of the station. He didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me from the doorway, his gaze unblinking. There was a strange, almost hypnotic quality to it. Tony noticed him too and cracked a joke about how it looked like something out of a horror movie. But I wasn't laughing. The man didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, as though waiting for something. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped out from behind the counter, my heart pounding in my chest. "Can I help you?" He didn't respond. Instead, he started to mutter something under his breath. It wasn't any language I recognized. The words were garbled, in a rhythm that sounded like a chant. My skin crawled, and a knot twisted in my stomach. Tony looked at me with concern. "Lily, maybe we should just call the cops or something." Before I could respond, the man turned abruptly, walking out the door and into the night without a single word. I watched him disappear into the trees. At 3 a.m., it happened again. This time, the man didn't just stand there. He banged on the locked door with his fists, his face illuminated by the eerie glow from his eyes. His chanting was louder now, and it seemed like it was coming from all around us. I felt the air grow thick, almost suffocating. I froze, paralyzed by fear. I wanted to call the police, but something told me that they wouldn't be able to help. The man's presence was overwhelming. Tony was just as freaked out. "We need to get out of here," he whispered, backing away from the door. But before we could make a move, the door flew open with a loud crash. I stumbled backward, my heart racing as I saw the hooded figures surrounding me. They had emerged from the shadows, their faces hidden in the fold of their robes, but their eyes gleamed in the dark. They moved in sync, as if they were one entity. The man who had spoken to me was in the front of the group, and his eyes were glowing brighter now, an unearthly light. "Come with us," he said, his voice soft but commanding. I opened my mouth to protest, but no sound came out. My body felt heavy, like I was being pulled toward them, despite my every instinct telling me to run. The chanting grew louder, reverberating in my skull, drowning out all rational thought. Tony reached out to me, but one of the figures raised a hand, and he was instantly paralyzed, his body frozen in place. I tried to scream, to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The figures surrounded me, pushing me toward the door, and I found myself stepping into the night, into the forest. Their chant grew in intensity, and I felt the forest itself closing around me, the trees whispering, urging me forward. "You are the one," the man whispered. "The chosen one." I struggled, tried to scream, but my voice was lost in the wind. They dragged me deeper into the woods, where the trees twisted and turned in unnatural ways. My heart raced. My mind screamed for me to run, but it was no use. Finally, we reached a clearing. In the center of it was an ancient stone altar, covered in strange symbols that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. They pushed me to my knees before it, and I felt the air grow cold, like the very life was being drained from the world around me. I tried to fight, to resist, but my body was not my own. The figures began their chant again, louder now, as though the very earth itself was joining in. I knew, in that moment, that I was not just a victim of their madness. I was a sacrifice. My vision blurred, and my breath grew shallow. I felt my heart slow, and then I felt it, a presence, something ancient and powerful, seeping into me. And as they completed their ritual, I realized the truth. I was not meant to live. I was the vessel, the gateway. The forest was alive. And now, so was I. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when I decided to venture into the Whispering Woods for my school project. I had always been fascinated by local folklore, especially the mysterious stories my grandmother used to tell me. She spoke of the old rituals, the hidden altar deep in the woods, and the eerie whispers that haunted the village at night. No one believed her anymore, of course. It was just a part of the ancient legends, passed down through generations, half forgotten and ignored by most. But something about the idea of those whispered voices, it called to me. The forest was quiet when I first stepped onto the overgrown path, the trees standing tall and dense around me. The air felt heavier here, like the woods themselves were holding their breath. My heart pounded a little faster, but I shook off the unease. It was just the start of my journey. I had a mission, a simple task: find something, anything, to present for my school report. A tree, an ancient rock, a strange symbol. It was all fair game. As I wandered deeper, I noticed something that made my pulse quicken, a massive tree in the center of a clearing, unlike any I'd seen before. Its gnarled roots twisted like veins, crawling out of the earth in every direction. Its bark was thick and cracked, as if it had weathered centuries of storms. There was something hypnotic about it. Without thinking, I took out my sketchbook and started drawing it. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought he was just another figment of my imagination, a shadow in the corner of my vision, flickering between the trunks of the trees. But then I saw him more clearly, tall, hooded, his face obscured by the cloak's shadow. He was standing by the tree, his hand pressed against its trunk, his fingers carving strange symbols into the bark. My breath caught in my throat. Who was he? Why was he marking this tree? I wanted to turn and run, but I couldn't move. My legs felt frozen. His voice, low and raspy, drifted to me from the shadows. "You've come to witness the chosen one," he murmured, his words almost too faint to hear. "You are not the first, but you will be the last." I stepped back, my heart racing. What was he talking about? My mind screamed at me to leave, to escape, but my curiosity had held me in place. "You are chosen for the right," he continued, not looking at me. His eyes focused on the symbols he carved. "To be part of something older than you could imagine." A cold shiver ran down my spine. The air seemed to grow thicker, heavier, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. I didn't know what this man, this figure, was talking about, but something in his words, in his presence, felt wrong. Suddenly, the wind picked up, swirling around me, making the leaves rustle like whispers. The man didn't even flinch. I turned on my heel, panic rising in my chest, and ran. I ran as fast as I could, deeper into the forest, away from the eerie figure and his cryptic words. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was that I had to get away from him, from whatever dark force had taken root in this place. The trees seemed to close in around me, the shadows growing longer as the sun dipped below the horizon. My breath came in ragged gasps as I stumbled over roots and uneven ground. My legs ached, but I couldn't stop. I finally came to a clearing. I froze. In the center of the clearing, a group of villagers stood around a large fire. Their faces were obscured by cloaks, just like the figure. Their hands were raised, chanting in a low, guttural tone. The fire flickered wildly, casting long, distorted shadows against the trees. And there, in the middle of the circle, was the man, the one who had spoken to me. I couldn't move, couldn't look away. The chants grew louder, more insistent, and I felt an overwhelming pull toward them, like invisible hands tugging at my very soul. The figure turned slowly, his head falling back slightly to reveal a face, twisted and pale, with eyes that gleamed with an unnatural light. "Samantha," he whispered. My name. The world seemed to tilt, and a rush of vertigo washed over me. I took a step back, my mind racing, my heart hammering in my chest. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But then I saw it, hidden among the firelight. Half buried in the dirt was a stone altar, and carved into it was my name. My full name. I gasped, stumbling back, as the chanting grew louder, more frantic, more desperate. They were waiting for something. Waiting for me. "No!" I whispered to myself, my feet moving instinctively, not wanting to be a part of whatever this was. I wanted to run. I had to run. But before I could move, a fierce wind howled through the clearing. The fire flickered and then exploded outward, sending embers flying into the air. The ground trembled beneath me as a storm seemed to tear the sky apart. Dark clouds rolled in, swirling above the circle like a monstrous storm cloud, casting the whole clearing in a sickly greenish light. The chanting grew into a deafening roar, and the air seemed to vibrate with power. Then, everything went silent. The storm dissipated as quickly as it had come, leaving the forest eerily still. The villagers had vanished, as had the figure. The fire was gone, and the altar was empty. The forest stood quiet, almost as if nothing had happened. I ran. I didn't stop running until I was safely back in the village. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I didn't tell anyone what I had seen, what I had heard. Who would believe me? Who would listen to the ramblings of a frightened girl? But the next day, when I returned to the forest with the police, there was no trace of the ritual, no sign of the altar, no mark on the ancient tree. The place was silent. The only thing I could hear was the wind rustling through the leaves, and the faintest whisper, my name, carried on the breeze. That was months ago. But every time I pass by the edge of the whispering woods, I hear it, soft, almost too faint to hear over the wind. My name. And I know, no matter how far I run, no matter how much time passes, I will never truly escape the forest. The ritual, it was never finished, and I am still its chosen.